Guglielmo Marconi was an Italian inventor and the father of long-distance radio transmission and winner of the 1909 Nobel Prize for Physics. Marconi was born in Bologna, Italy in 1874 and was interested from a young age in the physical and electrical sciences. He studied the works of other notable scientists and began experimenting with basic radio transmitters whilst on his father's estate. In 1895 he succeeded in sending wireless radio signals almost 1.5 miles. In 1896 he took his invention to England, where he was introduced to the chief electrical engineer of the post office, and was granted the world's first patent for wireless telegraphy. He demonstrated his new telegraph across England and France, and later across the United States. In 1901 he set out to prove that wireless radio waves were not affected by the curvature of the Earth, which was believed at the time, and he successfully transmitted from Cornwall in southwest England to Newfoundland, a distance of 2,100 miles. He built transmitting stations in the United States, and in 1903 he sent a message from President Theodore Roosevelt to King Edward VII of the United Kingdom, which was the first transatlantic message sent from the United States of America. Marconi's employees were used at other companies as well as his own, and the radio operators on board the Titanic were Marconi employees. After the inquiry into the sinking of the Titanic, Marconi and his invention were praised by Britain's Postmaster General for the lives that were saved on board and the ability to send a distress signal. He continued to improve his apparatus, and in 1914 he was commissioned to the Italian army in charge of the radio service, and appointed a senator in the Italian Senate. He was also made honorary Grand Knight of the Royal Victorian Order in the United Kingdom. He died in Rome aged 63.
The groundwork for commercial radio broadcasting was laid by a wireless amateur ham operator, Frank Conrad. He built a transmitting station in the attic of his garage in a suburb of Pittsburgh. Conrad had only a 7th grade education, but when it came to mechanics and electronics, he was a genius. Before there were networks, there were 250,000 wireless amateurs who loved to speak for hours on homemade crystal sets. Most merely broadcast news to each other. In November of 1919, Conrad, in an attempt to save his voice from hours of speaking into the ham microphone, substituted a phonograph and played music over the air. The results were astounding. By playing records, Conrad accidentally discovered a cohesive audience of Crystal radio set listeners. They wrote and phoned requests for more music and news. Conrad announced that he would broadcast musical programs 2 nights a week. He would coin the old farmer's term, broadcast, meaning to scatter seeds in all directions, and applied it to this new radio concept. Within a year, the new definition of broadcasting would be recognized worldwide. Commercial broadcasting was born.
The following program is brought to you live in living color on NBC.
In the beginning, man resorted to shouting to make himself heard beyond his immediate surroundings. Then, as now, the human voice could only carry so far. Later, when people learned to master fire, they used signal fires, placing them on hilltops or other clearly visible landmarks. In ancient China, signal fires were used to quickly warn the forces when the Great Wall was being attacked. In the 18th century, the optical telegraph made it possible to send coded messages. The average distance between the telegraph stations was around 10 kilometers, but could be up to 3 times that across waters. Samuel Morse was originally an American artist who was to become famous for his electric alphabet. In 1835, he presented the world's first commercial telegraph. For this new device, he developed the Morse code, based on short and long signals. It survived by far the primitive equipment it was designed for, and is still used today, both commercially and by radio amateurs. At the end of the 19th century, Italian inventor Guglielmo Marconi invented wireless signaling. By 1901, he'd managed to transmit a Morse-coded wireless message across the Atlantic, from Poldhu in Cornwall, UK, to St. John's, Newfoundland, Canada. A real breakthrough in radio came in 1906, when Lee de Forest invented the triode, the first radio tube that could be used as an amplifier. This was the first step of modern electronics. At sea, the introduction of modern radio equipment on an increasing number of vessels meant that safety increased. At the same time, a new message was learnt. 3 short signals, 3 long signals, and finally 3 short signals again. SOS. Save our souls. When the Titanic sank in 1912, it was the first naval disaster where wireless telegraphy and the SOS played an important role in saving lives. Although over 1,500 persons lost their lives, over 700 were saved by assisting vessels who picked up the Titanic's SOS signals over the radio.
Now wait a minute, Fred.
With the invention of radio came the first public radio stations. A wireless at home became the highest fashion. The family would sit together to hear news and entertainment. And right from the start, people were experimenting with radios in the car. They worked, but perhaps the antenna was a bit bulky. During the 2 world wars, the need for wireless communication, both for the fighting forces and secret agents, led to the rapid development of smaller and more efficient equipment. In the early 1940s, we learnt a new word: walkie-talkie, the predecessor to the mobile phone. By the outbreak of the Second World War, radio positioning was well known to both the Germans and the Allies. In order to conceal their positions from German U-boats, Allied convoys maintained strict radio silence, using the optical telegraph instead. In the childhood of radio, the idea of building a mobile telephone was seen as more of a joke than a serious vision of the future. It wasn't until after the war that we saw the first serious solutions for mobile telephony. In 1956, the world's first automatic mobile telephone system, the Ericsson MTA, was introduced. With 1 base station in Stockholm and 1 in Gothenburg, it served a total of 25 subscribers, 19 of them in Stockholm. In 1981, the NMT system was launched in Scandinavia. NMT provided national coverage in both Sweden, Norway, Denmark and Finland. In those days, the telephones were still bulky, stowaway items, mainly intended for use in vehicles. It took almost another decade for mobile phones to shrink in size and weight, under half a kilo, and thus achieve pocket success. The introduction of GSM and similar digital standards saw the emergence of ever smaller and lighter phones, even breaking the magical 100-gram mark. GSM and short messaging service, more generally known as SMS, became a sweeping success on the mass market for mobile data traffic. In Sweden, with a population touching on 9 million, close to 500 million SMS messages were sent during the year 2000. SMS, however, is only the beginning. In the near future, your telephone will be able to do so much more, like play music, help you to book romantic dinners, or even help you make cash winnings. Ever since the first telephone, the idea of a video phone has been on most telecom inventors' minds. Well, now it isn't a dream anymore. In 1999, Ericsson demonstrated the world's first mobile video call. From 2001, 3G systems have started to blaze new trails all over the world. The video phone is just another example of how Ericsson made reality out of a vision. Ericsson. Turning your mobile internet opportunities into business.